Real quick before we get into today's video, just want to thank all the people over on Patreon for all their support, because without their help, the upgraded content that you see on the channel, that you really see in the video essays and a few of the lore discussions would not be possible without their help. But over on the Patreon, you get sneak peeks of videos months in advance. Patrons also get priority on the Q&As. Every 3 months we do an anime and manga haul, and I give away a lot of good goodies in that. And it's also just really cool to talk to you guys in the DMs, and if some of you guys have theories that you want me to talk about on the channel, obviously I will talk about your theories. Just send them to me over on the Patreon. But with that being said, let's get into the review. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys a review for Boruto episode 255. And now that episode 255 is done in the books, we got to get right into the discussion here. All right, so just jumping right into it, we're going to go ahead and start with the highly controversial part of the episode that's going to be the source of many memes and TikToks and Twitter screen grabs and Instagram screen grabs. You're going to see this stuff on Facebook groups if you're still using Facebook. Essentially, the Boruto versus Kawaki fight that happens in the last 2.5 minutes of the episode. First and foremost, I've been seeing a lot of people say this is the manga adaptation of chapter 58. That is not the case. This is another one of those things that's going to be building up towards that adaptation, but this is not from the manga. Stop spreading that right there. The other thing that I will say about this is that before I get into critiquing the animation, I'm going to say taking out the last 2.5 minutes of the episode does not change the fact that the other parts of the episode had good squash and stretch, good anticipation, good exaggeration, good bounce elements. You had good staging, you had good follow through and overlap. You had several of the aspects of the 12 principles of animation on full display in this episode, but you're only going to hear about the last 2.5 minutes. So concerning those last 2.5 minutes, you can definitely tell that it wasn't polished like you would expect. There were some frames that were slowed down, and because certain aspects of that fight weren't polished and because certain aspects of it were slowed down, it's going to take you out of the scene altogether. But when you look at the storyboarding layout for the fight itself, honestly, that part wasn't bad. There was a very questionable decision to pan up to the cloud in this episode like we did in the Funamushi fight and leave a lot up to interpretation or cut over to Sarada and Naruto as they were fighting. I'm not sure if that was a storyboarding decision or whether or not that was something done for time reasons, which very well could be the case considering the fact that Studio Pierrot is doing pre-production on the next manga arc that we're going to be adapting in 2023. You couple that with the fact that Studio Pierrot just took 2 really big animators that have been with the Naruto franchise for over a decade and placed them on a new anime that Studio Pierrot got the rights for. It makes a lot of sense because we have been seeing more new animators being brought on to work on episodes alongside some of the industry vets, and this isn't something uncommon. Naruto and Naruto Shippuden actually broke some of the animators that worked on One Punch Man. But back to the animation critique itself. Again, it's just because you're looking at the polishing and because some of the frames are slowed down, that is likely going to be due to some of the time constraints that you're having, and because there are parts in here where you can look at it and you can tell that the corrections that were done were, without my knowledge, they look like the corrections might have been rushed through. That's probably going to be something that's cleaned up on the home media release. So yes, I agree with people saying that the last 2.5 minutes with the Boruto versus Kawaki fight wasn't the best thing, and at times it takes you out. But if we're gonna sit here and nitpick over the bad, you also got to point out the good in that fight as well. Like when Boruto's punching Kawaki and you can see their hair flapping, you can see the subtle ripples of Kawaki's skin on his face when Boruto's fist is connecting with his face, the movement of the clothes, that's very fluid. That 2.5 minute section of the episode had some lows, it had some highs as well, but that doesn't change the fact that the other 17 minutes of the episode itself wasn't bad animation. It wasn't Sakuga, but it wasn't bad animation. I challenge you to look up the 12 principles of animation and go back and look at the episodes in this arc and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, getting into the recap portion of the episode itself, I will say that I did like the idea that the episode starts off with Boruto and Team 7 being brought back back into the Hokage office. Sarada is giving her mission report, and you see very early on that there's going to be some conflict with Boruto and Kawaki, because Boruto's talking to his father and he's making the case when he hears everything. They're like, hey, you know, Ikada wasn't necessarily a bad person. He just made some bad decisions. And you can tell that Shikamaru and Naruto, they're watching Boruto very closely, and Naruto in particular, because this is really setting the stage for that wholesome father-son chat that we have later on in the episode. But once it becomes clear that Boruto is going to start making a request to take things easy on Ikada, that's when Kawaki just goes back. He walks back a little bit of where his character was previously, and he just basically says like, dude, I cannot believe what I'm hearing right now. Like, if there was no need for fighting, there wouldn't be any ninja. I'm paraphrasing what he's saying, but essentially what he's saying to Boruto is that Ikada was the commander of the Funato army. He should not be let off easily. And what I like there is that as this is going on, you see some of the other characters like Funamushi's son Kabuna, where he's standing with his mother. He's standing with what's going to be the father figure in his life, where the guy is telling him like, I'll raise you into a son that Funamushi could be proud of. You're watching as some of the Funato clan members that are going to be punished are the ones that are still being held in captivity. It gets revealed that Kawaki didn't actually kill Arayumi, just left him in a near-death state. And so you're seeing right here that there are some consequences for the members of the Funato. And what I like about this is that it gets revealed in the episode that Chojuro is under heavy pressure, as he should be, from the feudal lord to come down heavy on the Funato, because they've been raising up and they've been gaining allies and they've been standing directly against the land of water. And like you guys have heard me say numerous times throughout the arc, when you read the novels, there were passing lines in the blank period novels as well as in some of the novels set in the Boruto era that make it very clear that there was a lot of internal conflict, and there were small proxy wars that were taking place in the land of water, where the expansion that they were trying to do starting under Mei and continuing under Chojuro as the Mizukage, there were a lot of people who did not sign off on this. And it's one of the first things I brought up when you go back to, I believe, episode 234, where Boruto's walking and he sees the people protesting. One of the things I asked you guys in the episode question, I said like, yo, is it possible that this is a situation where both sides are wrong? If for the greater good, the way of life of people needs to be impacted, should those people be compensated? Should they be listened to? Is the greater good for the whole more important than sacrificing the quality of life for others? And that's a very real world problem that we have here. And to get personal with you guys, that's something that was going on with my own family's property, with the home that I purchased and refinanced for my mother after her business went out when COVID happened in 2020, where we went through a very similar situation where there was a zoning issue where land that was in my family for over 150 years was being ripped up because the land was being taken, and we had to go to court to fight. That's really why you've been seeing me experiment more with thumbnails and titles and etc., because I've been in a legal dispute and I've been using a lot of that money for that for the last year and a half. But I say that to say, I like how Chojuro comes to the realization to say, maybe we tried to expand too quickly. Maybe we need to take into consideration the other things. Maybe we need to talk things out with the people that we're impacting, because if we don't, it's going to lead to another Funato clan uprising. And so I like that. That's more of a perfect world scenario. Again, I might be jaded because of what's going on in my own personal life, but things often don't happen like that. And so I did like seeing that right there. And I like how when Kawaki walks out the Hokage office and tells Sarada to basically screw off because he doesn't want to be around Team 7 right now, he runs into Denki's team. And you have this really good moment where, again, when you know what to look for, there's good anticipation, there's good exaggeration going on here, good pose to pose, good follow through, very good secondary action. I like what you see because Iwabe is getting ready to just try and slap some sense into Kawaki, because Kawaki's like, man, like, you guys are just like Boruto and them. And we're seeing those signs that Kawaki has looked at the way that ninja are doing things, and he's like, man, the hell with all this, Jigen was right. Again, chapter 58 is coming. I like seeing that because we're getting moments in this episode that are directly building towards Kawaki getting the information needed for him to say that the way of the shinobi is over. And I like that the way that Kawaki's whole thought process has begun to start changing over the last 40 episodes, it feels natural. Whereas in the manga, when Kawaki flipped that light switch, it felt very sudden. I like how as Kawaki is trying to process his feelings and emotions, on the other side, you also have Boruto, where he's standing on top of the Hokage office and he's talking to Naruto, and Naruto's telling him like, yeah, you know, your situation about hatred in the world and your situation about wanting to try and do something about it, that's so funny because I went through something like that very similar. And what I like here is that for all the people that have been bitching and moaning, they're like, yo, we don't see Naruto impart any type of wisdom into Boruto, you should be talking to him about the things he's went through. We're actually seeing that right now. We're seeing Naruto talk to his son, and the reason why that talk right now can hit much harder is Boruto has now actually gone through something and is in need of the guidance. It's kind of like how if I talked to my Uncle Steak, who served in Vietnam, about what it's like to be at war and why is he having all those night terrors and everything, I can't relate to it because I haven't been through war. I've been shot at, but I ain't been shot like him. I don't know what it's like to have night terrors and have to relive seeing people that you serve with being dead looking up at you. Hearing about something and experiencing it and struggling it, it's different. And so Naruto's now in a prime position to actually reach his son and help guide his son through the feelings that he's feeling right now, but also be humble enough to acknowledge to his son that he isn't perfect. He doesn't know everything. I love that Naruto admits that, and admits something that I caught a lot of shit for saying, which is that even in this peaceful era, it's far from a utopia. There are still a lot of big issues that are going on beneath the surface. The 5 nations, they're on speaking terms, they share intel, but there are proxy wars that still go on in this continent. There are skirmishes that occur inside of each of the villages. There are issues in the other smaller villages that are outside the 5 great nations. There are still some walls that exist between each of the ninja villages. It's something that Naruto as a Hokage, he's still trying to figure out the answer to achieve true peace. I caught shit for saying that Naruto still had work to do, and we got Naruto right now telling Boruto, I don't have everything figured out. But the important thing is that you find a way to endure until you do figure it out. There's still work that has to be done. That's why Mujino's team was sent out to mediate when skirmishes broke out with smaller nations. Naruto's still trying to help create that world that he talked about in part 2 when he was talking to Sasuke, and Sasuke told him, your dream is unrealistic. Naruto's still working towards that, but because I didn't suck the ramen noodle flavored dick of Naruto, all of a sudden I was the bad guy. I love that Naruto's being humble here. And what I like there is that after Naruto talks to Boruto, he tells him, you need to try and make up a Kawaki. And you had that good moment where Naruto kind of has this moment where he's like, yo, you know, you being stubborn and everything because you and Kawaki aren't talking, that's essentially why there's gonna be more conflict. Go make things up. And when Naruto finds out that Shojiro is gonna give Ikada a lenient sentence by allowing Ikada to go back into the care of Kaijiki, essentially build ships, Naruto goes to try and break the news. And as this is taking place, you have Buntan and Kyoho at the graves of Kagura and Heavy Ichigo, and essentially Buntan says she's going to go back to being a Mist Shinobi. Kyoho's going to stay and protect Kagura's village, and Buntan's going to work with the Mist village to bring Shizuma to justice, which means that we're probably going to be coming back here to the Hidden Mist village at some point. That's when we get to the big dust up at Boruto and Kawaki, and this is once again one of those times where this is just to serve as more setup for Kawaki eventually snapping on Team 7 when they inevitably adapt the Boruto chapter 58 into the anime, likely sometime in the next few months before we get to the code arc. But with that being said, this episode ends off the arc itself. So my episode question to you guys is, do you guys think that Ikada got off too easily? And do you guys think that Kawaki was right or was Boruto right? Let me know down in the comment section. While you think those questions over, consider watching these other videos you see on the screen right now.